All right, let's jump right in. Every business owner out there knows what profit is, right? But here's the real question. Do you know how safe that profit actually is? Today, we're going to talk about this incredibly useful concept that's like a health check for your business. It shows you the real buffer you have when things, inevitably go wrong. It's called the margin of safety.
So let me introduce you to Mr. White. He owns a company called Hashbag. And in February, they had a fantastic month. They sold 1,000 bags, brought in 50 grand in sales, and after all the bills were paid, he walked away with a cool $6,000 profit. I mean, looking at this, everything seems great, doesn't it?
But here's where it gets interesting. Despite that really healthy-looking profit, Mr. White is losing sleep. He is worried that his business is way more fragile than the numbers suggest. Now that sounds like a total contradiction. So what is really going on here?
Well, this brings us to what I call the profitable dilemma. It's this funny thing where making money doesn't automatically get rid of risk. Actually, for Mr. White, being successful has just made him painfully aware of how much he has to lose if things suddenly go south.
And his anxiety isn't just some vague feeling. It's super specific. He knows his competitors see him doing well, and he's worried they're going to react. Maybe they'll lower their prices, maybe they'll launch a new product. Either way, it could mean a big drop in his future sales. It's that classic what if that keeps you up at night.
So all that worry, all that anxiety, it really just boils down to one very specific question. How much exactly can his sales fall before that $6,000 profit completely disappears and he starts bleeding money? See, he needs a number, not just a bad feeling.
And to answer that question, to really get a handle on his business's risk, we need to define his financial safety net. And that's where the margin of safety comes in.
So what is it? Simply put, the margin of safety is the gap between your current sales and your break-even sales. Now, your break-even point is just that, the point where your sales exactly cover all your costs. You're not making money, but you're not losing it either. So the margin of safety, that's your cushion, that's your wiggle room. It's the buffer protecting you from that break-even line. Okay, enough with the theory. Let's get our hands dirty and actually calculate this buffer for Hashbag. We're about to turn Mr. White's vague fear into a hard number he can actually use.
And you know what? The calculation is beautifully simple. First, you take Hashbag's actual sales for the month. That's $50,000. Then you subtract their break-even sales. For Hashbag, that number is $35,000. That's the bare minimum they need to sell just to cover everything. And the difference? Well, that's our answer.
And there it is, $15,000. This is the concrete, no-nonsense answer to Mr. White's big question. This one number represents his company's resilience.
And what this means, in plain English, is that Hashbag sales can drop by a full 15 grand, all the way from 50,000 down to 35,000 before that nice $6,000 profit completely vanishes and the company starts to bleed red ink. That is his safety net.
This visual just makes it crystal clear. Think about it. 70% of Hashbag sales are just working to keep the lights on and pay the bills. That's the break-even chunk. But that other 30%, that is his margin of safety. That's the only part of his sales that actually represents pure success.
But hang on, because this leads us to the single most important idea in this entire explainer. We know how big the margin is, but what does it do? I mean, where does that $6,000 in profit actually truly come from? The answer, it turns out, is hiding inside the margin of safety. This right here explains everything. Your sales revenue basically has two different jobs. The first chunk of your sales, that 70% break-even part, it has one mission: cover all your costs. It works really, really hard, but it generates exactly zero profit. It's only after all those costs are paid off that the second chunk, the margin of safety part, gets to do its thing. And its only job, generate 100% of your profit. Just let that sink in for a second, because this is the biggest takeaway of all. Your entire profit doesn't just come from your total sales. It comes exclusively from the sales you make above your break-even point. Your whole profit lives inside your margin of safety.
And boom, we're right back to Mr. White's anxiety. Now it all makes sense, doesn't it? His gut feeling was totally right. Even if you're making a profit, if your margin of safety is thin, it means your entire profit is sitting on a knife's edge. It's totally vulnerable to even a small dip in sales. His fear wasn't irrational at all. It was his intuition picking up on this exact concept.
This table here really lays out the whole story. Just look at that profit/loss column all the way on the right. See how it goes from a massive loss of 14 grand down to 6 grand, And then suddenly, at 700 units, it hits 0. That's the pivot point. Anything they sell after that is pure profit.
So we've seen the numbers get closer and closer. We've watched the red ink start to fade. So, where exactly is that tipping point? What's the moment of truth? Boom! There it is, 700 units. For M/Hashbag, this is the magic number. At exactly 700 bags sold, they are no longer losing money. They're not making a profit yet either, but every single one of their costs, both fixed and variable, is paid for. They have officially broken even.
Seeing numbers in a table is one thing, but sometimes, to really get it, you need to see the picture. So let's actually visualize this whole journey from loss to profit. And the best tool for the job is something called a cost-volume-profit chart. Now I know, it sounds a little intimidating, but a CVP chart is really just a simple, powerful way to see the relationship between what you spend, what you sell, and what you earn.
Okay, so let's build this chart in our heads. Imagine two lines. The first one is your total cost line. It doesn't start at 0, right? It starts up at $14,000 because of those fixed costs, and it slopes up from there. The second line is your total revenue. That one starts at 0 and climbs with every single sale. The whole story, the magic, happens right where those two lines cross. That's it. That's your break-even point. So for our friends at Hashbag, that intersection happens right when they sell their 700th bag. At that moment, their total sales are $35,000, which is exactly what their total costs are. It's a perfect balance. Every dollar that came in went right back out.
Look, breaking even is a massive milestone. It's huge, but it's not the end goal, right? You get into business to actually make a profit. So what happens after you cross that magic line?
Well, let's see what happens when they sell 900 bags. They're way past the break-even point now. Every single bag they sold after number 700 is pure profit. That whole space between 700 and 900, that's their cushion. It's their safety net. And you know what? That cushion has an official name. It's called the margin of safety. All it means is it's the gap between where your sales are right now and where your break-even point is. It's a measure of how much your sales could fall before you start losing money again.
And honestly, this is more than just some business school term. Your margin of safety is your breathing room. It's your peace of mind. It is literally what lets you sleep at night, knowing that a slow week or even a bad month isn't going to sink the whole ship.
So, we've walked through the math, we've seen the charts, but let's just bring it all home. Why is taking the time to find this one number so unbelievably important for anyone running a business?
Let's just boil it down. Your break-even point, that's your survival line. It gives you a concrete, no-nonsense target. It's not a vague hope, it's a real number. It's the absolute foundation for setting smart sales goals, and it's your first, most important step on the path to building a truly profitable company.
So, there you have it, the magic number, decoded. Whether you're just sketching an idea on a napkin or you're running a company that's been around for years, this knowledge is your superpower. The only question left is, what are you going to do with it?